3, 2, 1.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh, ah. Welcome to the Johnny Jigs podcast. Oh, okay, Devin.
Tapping bottom with Johnny Jigs.
We tapping bottom, boys.
Is this
Man.
This is being recorded?
Yeah,
This is
live.
This is live.
Right now, it's live.
We got to get used to the
ready to go.
podcast thing here.
Yeah.
But we are officially live on the podcast. So,
Oh, yeah.
how cool, man. Right? We get this open channel to talk about fishing related things, fishing topics, everything fish. I am fired up about the Johnny Jigs podcast. This is going to be rad.
Woo!
But
Heck yeah.
so we've got a pretty exciting show today. My name is Captain Johnny Statham, and joining me today is probably a guy who's pretty much analyzed every migration of every fish in the ocean, my co-host Christopher Doyle, and who could also make a federal case out of rigging a slow pitch jig. And then there's Adam. So we got a lot to get to today, actually, guys. So first thing is golden tilefish, right? So the season opened up the first of the year. We're going to talk about techniques for catching golden tilefish, our experience last week catching golden tilefish, as well as some rules and regulations that will absolutely blow your mind as a recreational fisherman. And then the next thing that we want to get into is 4-strand braid versus 8-strand braid. And Mr. Benny Ortiz, if you're not familiar with him, he's a very well-respected slow pitch jigging angler in the United States that has made a statement about 8-strand versus 4-strand. We're going to talk about that a little bit and our thoughts on what he says. So first topic of discussion, golden tilefish, our trip. So guys, we went out, what day was that?
The first
New Year's.
That's right. So we did not stay up. Did anybody make it till midnight?
I was up till about 2.
Devin was,
Sleeping 9:30.
that's Devin Butterfield's, our head of media, by the way.
He's a night owl.
Up till 2. Yeah, maybe that's why you threw up on the boat.
Truth.
I got a little sick. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Happens to the best of us.
There is video evidence.
So deep dropping for golden tile out of the South Atlantic. I can remember our first time going out, Chris, and doing that. And we're deploying 250, 300 gram jigs on 30-pound tests. And we're deploying, and we continued deploying. And we never
Stopped
felt
deploying.
the bottom, right? We're like, what is going on?
Yep.
So there's some technical aspects to that and understanding what gear you actually need to actually feel bottom and be able to successfully harvest one of these fish, catch one of these fish. So our next time out, what did we do?
Heavier jigs, lighter line.
Yeah, just to keep it simple. So we went down to, I think, 20-pound tests, but I don't think we were even heavy enough on the jigs then. We went to like 400 grams, and then eventually the 500 got us down there. And I think our first fish was a black belly rosefish.
Yeah.
If you're catching black belly rosefish, it's kind of a telltale sign that there's golden tiles in the area. So you're looking for that muddy bottom. Signs of life, on your screen. Once in a while, you can mark those black belly rosefish. But if you can feel bottom, you've got a chance.
Yeah, on the boat, Chris had a good question. What are they doing down there?
Yeah.
Which ones? The rosies?
The
It's
rosies.
the substrate. They're not burrowing fish. They're benthic, so that means they are bottom fish. But they will not burrow. But what they do, they go underneath that sediment, that mud and that sediment, and they'll go down there for protection. And they can do that to also reproduce. So it's a safety thing, it's a protection thing, and food, because there's the crustaceans and everything on the seafloor.
Like Chris pointed out, it's usually just rosies and
Golden
goldens.
tiles. Yeah. That's it. That's the expected catch, and there's not many anomalies from there, at least in the South Atlantic fishery down here. Rosies and goldens.
Will got that tuna.
That wasn't on the bottom.
Oh,
That was 200 feet off the floor.
You know what, though? It's not uncommon for us to get a larger size blackfin tuna out there.
No.
We've done that.
Especially in the winter months when this season opens up.
We've done it several times. Yeah. It's like if you can't find them inshore, there's a good chance you're going to get them in the deeper water.
Well, some people have caught snowies as well in those same areas. Because if you're catching rosies, and be crevices and rocks as well. Maybe there's snowies.
They're more structure oriented. So we're kind of in mud out there. But if you go across some sort of structure, you know, while you're doing a drift for the golden tilefish, then for sure you're gonna possibly come across a snowy. But you know, it's the next, and not to get off topic, but like the next deep venture for us. And I know that guys are doing this out of our waters in the South Atlantic is barrelfish. I know they're out there. Guys are getting them. They're holding this stuff tight to their vest. They're not giving their numbers up. And you have to have the perfect conditions. So really, if you're going out for golden tilefish, when we get out there and we see on the screen that our drift speed is 2 miles an hour, we're pretty happy. We're like, okay, this is doable. If we see 1 knot, we're like, this is perfect, right? And then once you get below 1 knot, you're like, okay, as long as we're moving, then we're in good shape. But anything over 2, so we've done it as fast as 4, and it's like you get 1 or 2 taps on the bottom, and you don't even know if you're hitting bottom anymore. You just, when in doubt, let line out. You know,
Yeah, you got to pay close attention for your first tap of the bottom, and you got to be prepared to not ever feel it again.
Yep.
Which is frustrating, and which is another reason why we advocate for these small electric reels, because the work that's involved in being crazy enough to just get that 1 tap on the bottom to get a chance at a fish, and then to come all the way back up and do it again. The electrics allow you to do that all morning or all day long and still take advantage of the little opportunity that you have. Doing that manual, I mean, sometimes I will really dig deep and get 4 or 5 drops in, but I'm smoked after that.
I was proud of you on New Year's
Yeah,
because you even went back. I lasted 1 drop with manual.
I did. I went
And then
back.
John's like, Adam wants a golden. He's going with electric.
I felt like I could keep going on the manual the other day. Like I was feeling pretty good. Like there's days when I get out there and I'm just gassed before we even drop a jig down, and I'm like, electric. I'm going electric. But I
There's
had some
days
gas
that
in the
it's
tank.
not like that. And
Yeah.
it's like you just keep going.
But another thing is there's like some unsaid competition out there amongst us jigging
Yeah.
guys, right? So on our way leaving the dock, our buddy Vidot rolls by. You know, he's got a bunch of boys that we love, you know, that are going out jigging for golden tile. We know exactly what they're doing. They love them just as much as us. There's no other reasons some dudes are up at 7 a.m. on the first of the year without having a purpose. You know, we're going for the opening of golden tile season. So we see them cruise by and we're like, we have to catch more goldens than them, right? So I think we're like, you know what? We fished the manuals for approximately
Couple hours.
Yeah, I would say a third of the day we did, and then we're like, okay, we got to put some fish on the boat, you know?
Yeah.
My thought
Do we know how those boys did that morning?
they got a bunch of snowies.
Yeah, I don't think they
Benito.
got any goldens.
Okay.
But so we got
We won.
the wee one. So we ended up catching 1 golden tile.
Right.
When I say we, Will Crane
Will
caught
Crane. Willie
1
Biggs is the name. Slow pitch jigging is the game.
Billy
golden
Bates.
tile. But I had 2 hookups that I'm certain were golden tiles, and I think I made some mistakes on the water that day. What can I say, man? I'm not perfect. I made some
What mistake
mistakes.
would you say?
So the first fish, I had my drag too light. So when you're that deep, you know, I'm talking about 700 to 900 feet of water, you have this huge scope in your line, right? So think of it as like a big U down there, and you need to have your drag relatively tight to be able to set the hook, get the hook past the barb in the fish's mouth, especially if you're using a heavier wire hook like we use. So on the first fish, I didn't have my drag set tight enough. And when I set, so instead of setting and actually pulling that hook into the fish's mouth, it pulls drag off the reel, right? But by that time, you're already in reeling the fish up mode. You know, you've got the motor going on the electric, so you're uncertain of it. You know what I mean? So I didn't hear that line peel off my spool or see it pull off my spool when I set the hook. But I know that when I checked my drag after that fish, definitely too light. So I didn't get a good hook set on it.
Well, one of their signature moves as you're bringing them up is these violent kind of pops they do on you, and,
Yep.
and you're holding a slow pitch jigging rod, which is a light rod, and you're connected to one of these fish. It's kind of scary. It's like whoa, and they'll do that down deep, and they're kind of their signature move is to do that when they first start seeing sunlight around. So you're going to get them at 200 feet and they really wake up. They don't like the sunlight, but you get those coming up. And if you don't have a proper hook set, it's not hard. Clearly, we've all lost plenty of goldens on the jig. It's not hard for them to shake a hook if the penetration's not good enough.
Yeah. Interesting fact about golden tiles. They do not eat at night.
Right.
They will only eat during the daytime, and even just deep dropping in general. Captain Greg Mercurio from the Yankee Cap has told us on quite a few occasions actually that
deep species eat at night.
Yeah, and midday when the sun's straight up is the best time to go. Granted, we go out there and we're first thing in the morning and we've caught them in the morning, but the sun is up. So I can tell you, don't waste your time going out there at night. It's not worth it.
No. Although we have seen nighttime queens, we have seen obviously nighttime grouper, and those goldens seem to wake up pretty early in the morning. We get out there 7:30 just after sunrise, and we've connected with them enough times.
Yeah, most predatory fish do feed at night, so that is odd considering they are predatory. They're going after the crustaceans and other creatures in the bottom.
That's why I want to have a better idea of what's going on.
Did you
down
try and
there.
find any pictures of their burrows or find photos of tilefish on the bottom? Because
you need a
they are
submarine.
slim to none.
Yeah.
There's 3 pictures that I could even find to talk about their burrows, because their burrows can be 6 feet deep and 25 feet wide. And they're social fish, which is wild. So they'll have a whole... imagine you're down there in your burrow hanging out. Hey, Todd, what's up? Gone. See you later.
Space candy, quick, eat it. And then you got this express elevator all the way to the top. Oh, the misery.
One of their nicknames is the clown of the sea.
I mean, they are funny looking.
I mean, honestly, let's talk about the fish. How beautiful
They're vibrant.
It's
is
very
a golden
pretty.
tile fish.
It is very pretty.
Yeah.
Those eyes, though.
Beautiful blue, big, clear eyes, but their coloring and their markations
green,
are incredible. That fish lives 800, 1,000, 1,200. They're commonly caught as deep as 1,500. I think the deepest I would say that our team has caught a golden is maybe 1,300 feet, and that was on the Gulf Coast.
Yeah, it says 600 to 1,500 for them.
Yeah, I have gotten one in 650.
Yep.
Either last year or the year before. We were using Seymour maps after they came out with a new version, and there was a little nugget, and we were thinking a snowy spot, and we dropped perfectly on this hole or this nugget, whatever it was, and I connected, and I brought up a 8 to 10 pound smaller golden tile, 650. That's the shallowest I've seen one caught.
I do remember that. I can concur. Yes.
And then why the difference, do you think, with blue line tile?
What do you mean?
Because they're shallower, are they not?
Yeah. I mean, that's their habitat. It's like you can pretty much know in a roundabout way what species you're going to catch by what depth you're in. That's how we target species.
Right. And that's why it's incredible to me. Okay, the tuna definitely do happen also, but for the most part, it's and you got to get through a lot of rosies to get a golden. We often say that, but it's rosies and it's goldens in this area. And let's break this down. We're fishing in the Southeast Atlantic fishery. If you Google golden tiles, NOAA says that they are found all the way up in Nova Scotia, Canada. They run the entire East Coast.
Wow.
Right? The entire East Coast. And if you're listening and you've caught golden tiles, I'd love to know about more northern catches. Obviously, the hot spot for the giants and just for the volume of golden tile
New
is
Jersey.
New Jersey. The guys going off into the canyons, particularly like the Hudson Canyon area. You get to that from Montauk, New York as well. There's charter boats that run long-range trips specifically for golden tile. The jig is really catching on up there. And the world record golden tiles has been caught and beaten almost like year after year up there. It's up in like the
What is the world record?
It's pushing 60 pounds. There might be a 61, 2-pounder. It was just last year a new world record was set out there in those canyons. But I am very interested in what's happening even north because it says Maine, Nova Scotia, Canada, So they run the entire eastern seaboard, you know, off the continental shelf and then also in the Gulf. And that's where we have caught them and see them in the Gulf is it's deeper. So we've fished Pulley Ridge many, many, many times, right? Lots of beautiful queen snapper, lots of beautiful grouper. But those Goldens seem to be in an area that is deeper than where we catch them here in the Southeast Atlantic.
What's odd about the Northeast, because we used to fish for tile when we'd go trolling for tuna in the canyons when I lived up there.
There you go.
So we would strike out in tuna, let's go get some meat on the boat. We were going to be driving down, you know, go over to the canyon edge, and the habitat is different. They're on the ledges over there where it's, you know, decreasing from height, and they're in these sandy weird ledges, where here they're just in the flat. So we would be dropping along the ledge wall trying to find that sand on the drops as opposed to just flat ground out here.
Correct.
So it's a little
It's
bit
interesting.
Yeah, here we're looking for softer bottom. You know, we put a B260 Airmar transducer in our boat in addition to the 175 high wide. So we're running 2 transducers, and when we're in 800 feet, we're using what we call the deep deucer.
That's right. It's literally labeled on our screen, deep deucer.
Correct. So and we can get some softer, you know, versus harder returns out there in 8-900 pretty easy. And we see when the bottom starts to get an orangey return on it, you know, we're not catching Goldens there. But when we're getting more of a yellow bluish, you know, area, we're in an area where we're catching Goldens. But it's flat, it's soft bottom, it's muddy bottom. But in the Gulf and then up in the canyon area, it's not flat.
We are constantly having to reel in to adjust drifting up the shelf.
Right. But there are soft spots within the
Correct.
structure, and that's where golden tiles
Difficult
are
to
found,
find.
which is bizarre because in the Gulf, the continental shelf starts to slide off into the abyss after 800 feet. So we're finding the Goldens in Pulley Ridge as the continental shelf is falling off, and there are those soft spots in between the structure, because we'll be on a drift and we'll hit queens, a snowy, a yellow edge, and then all of a sudden, like last year in August, we hit a honey hole of Goldens, and every angler on the boat, one after another.
Oh, that was incredible. Everybody. It didn't matter your skill set, how good you were. You were getting a golden tile
It was
today.
the type of golden shower you want.
Yeah. You had to go there. So let's talk a little bit about technique and gear as far as jigging is concerned, and I'll just kind of touch base a little bit. So you can catch them with a chicken rig and a lead, right? It's a piece of lead, squid's the bait. You can go out there and basically bounce the bottom with that lead until you run into them. They'll eat it. You're going to have to go through a ton of black belly rosefish, but we do the same on the jig.
Probably the easiest way to catch them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely much
multiple
easier.
baits,
Yeah. You're not
scent.
holding the rod. It's essentially locked into the rod holder. So you're not having to fight with gear by any means, except for that big piece of lead and hooks swinging everywhere.
What's the normal weight that you would use if you were dropping a chicken rig as compared to using our 400, 500, 600 gram jigs?
You're asking a bunch of jigging guys.
Yeah, but it's 4 or 5, 6 pounds. Again, you're adjusting your lead for the drift speed, you know, that you're dealing with, but it's going to be 4 or 5 pounds.
You need to be able to stick bottom. So
Right.
you're going to adjust just like you would your jig. You're going to adjust to where you can stick bottom on some level. But for us, slow pitch jigging enthusiasts, what we're doing is we're scoping our line down to 20-pound test, even 15-pound test. I think you went 15 the other day, Chris. And it's counterintuitive to what you would normally think. So we did get an email the other day from just one of our customers that was like, "Hey, I bought this setup. I want to put 100-pound test on it for deep dropping." You know, and that's a common thought process for people. You know, this gentleman is not alone in that thinking. But on deep dropping, we're not going heavy with the line. We're going light
Light as possible.
Yeah, and the reason is that we can cut through the current and actually feel bottom because, you know, like we said, the first time that you and I went out, Chris, we dropped down. We had 30-pound test, 300-gram jigs, and essentially what happens is you just keep letting line out. And by the time the current catches all of that line that you have scoped out in the water, it is pulling your jig off of the bottom, and you never feel a single thing. But then the next thing that we've gotten into a lot is single hooks, right? So, and I want to share something interesting with you guys that I didn't talk about the other day when we were out fishing. So I missed 2 fish, right? I was pretty busted up about that. You know, you start getting in your head and you're like, man. And then the 2 of you are talking about, oh, your sets, right? You guys are getting in my head too, just messing with me. I know it. But you can't help but think like, where did I go wrong? What did I do wrong? So I went ahead and I stuck another single hook on the top and the bottom. I'm like, if this fish eats, I'm going to stick a bunch of hooks in him. But let me tell you what happened whenever I did that. So when I deployed my jig, it kept trying to get horizontal on me. So as soon as that jig gets horizontal, it slows your descent rate way down. So I was having to like thumb the spool super hard. And even though I was doing that, by the time it got halfway down, it still kept getting sideways on me. So I ended up taking those hooks off. And then I was dropping down faster again. But also something that I noticed very interesting. And I got 2 bites, right? I got 2 bites. Yeah. You know, you can't deny the fact that I got 2 bites. And that's because I was able to get down, touch bottom, and oh no, thank you. You're too kind, Devin.
Better late than never.
No, thank you. Too kind. Yeah, he's like super late on that. I was already on another topic.
He's talking about his dog that died. He's like, yeah.
So anyways, soon as I deployed the jig, like I was putting enough pressure on the spool to where it almost burned my finger, and you would not believe how fast that thing speeds up whenever you do that. And it's something super. So you would think like, no, you don't thumb the spool, you let the jig fall. But thumbing the spool, as we know, made the jig go vertical. And then you could see that spool speed up. You could also see my thumb smoking from, holding my thumb on there. But I was getting to the bottom quick, and I was getting more bottom time than probably most of you after I took those other hooks off. But I did have my redemption. I missed 2 fish that day. And then I went out with Victor from Landshark Outdoors on YouTube. He's got a great YouTube channel. He took me out fishing on his boat, our numbers. And I hooked 1 big fish, passed the rod off, and then I reeled in 1 big fish myself.
So those were the 2 you lost.
That was the 2.
Same ones, probably.
I got them.
Same numbers, same fish.
They just said, not today, man.
They came back.
Yeah, not today. It's tomorrow.
The universe balanced itself out.
I have a question for you, because on our trip, you used 15 and 20. Did you notice a difference?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that morning, January 1st, it started out with more wind at first earlier. So the conditions were turned up a bit. I think we were reading something like the bottom speed was bouncing around between 2.5 and 3.
Approximately.
And then we kind of got down to 2. Saw
high ones.
Little 1/8.
Yeah, it got better as the day progressed.
So when I started out manual, I was using a 15-pound J-braid 4-strand, the X4, and I used a 40-pound fluoro leader. And so when I did switch to electric, the conditions had come down a little bit. But just amongst us talking, it seemed like I was making contact well, but I had 4, 5, 6 redrops where I was able to still feel bottom and really work the bottom.
So whenever you're talking between 15 and 20, how much diameter are we talking about? A third difference? A third less approximately?
An average 20-pound braid
0.23 millimeter
is 0.2 to 0.23, and then a 20-pound, and a 15-pound is down at like 0.17. So we're literally talking about like 5/100ths of a millimeter,
which is approximately a third though of the 0.17.
Correct. Yeah, it's a third of the diameter. We're not talking about much, but
over 1,000 feet.
It plays a significant difference in not only making contact with the bottom, but having subsequent redrops. And something very interesting happens. And let's just take it back a step or two. We're using jigs. We said that a lead weight for a chicken rig is probably going to be on average 5 pounds. We're using jigs that day that were 500 and 600 grams. So there's 448 grams in a pound. So we're using jigs that are 1 pound or 1 pound and a couple ounces compared to 5 pounds of lead on a chicken rig. So that's 1/5 the weight on a jig. It's a beautiful thing.
Going back to the line thing just a little bit, it's easy to picture one little cut piece of line at that diameter. But whenever you spread that surface area out over 1,000 feet, like you were saying, now all of a sudden the surface area is big. You know what I mean? If you laid that, on a table and just without overlapping, laid that out, you've got a substantial, surface area that's causing that drag.
Catches like a sail.
Yeah, it does. It does. So it makes a huge, and we're kind of slow pitch guys. We're line nerds. We need the thinnest diameter line possible to make what we're doing the most effective.
Right, and that line has to be reliable and have an adequate strength to it, and abrasion resistance too. Because now one of the biggest factors that's a risk factor using light line is it's not necessarily the break strength. The break strength of a 15-pound braid is fine. The actual break strength is in like the mid-20s. My drag is set at 10 to 12 pounds. My drag is set to break at half of the pound strength that the braid is. So like I'm good on break strength. But man, when you wrap with another angler and you can score or abrase or compromise that braid in any way, that's when you're going to have a problem when you put pressure on it.
So whenever we were up north, we would have to drive over 3 hours, 4 hours sometimes to get to these spots in the canyons, just like you were saying for the Gulf, right?
Yeah. I mean, the Gulf, it's like you got to have the fuel capacity to do it, right? You either have to have a saddle tank on your boat or you got to be on a big head boat that has, unlimited fuel, not unlimited, but you know what I mean? You can go out for days and they still have enough fuel. Or
400 gallons.
Yeah, there's
minimum.
There's some big boy boats out there, head boats that do a day trip out there. They fly on their Freemans, but they're sucking fuel. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of gallons, if not even 1,000 gallons to go there and back, because it's a long, long ride. But it's not just golden tiles, though, we're talking about in the Gulf. So when you run out there, we're talking about, snowy groupers of the likes you have never seen before, the opportunity to catch barrelfish and kitty Mitchells. And I just get pumped about going out into the Gulf.
All right, let's go.
Yeah. So let me take 1 second just to thank our sponsor for the show, Temple Reef. Yes. Thank you very much. Temple Reef is a prominent brand that makes some of the most beautiful slow pitch jigging, casting, and stick bait and popping rods you have ever seen. So thank you for sponsoring our show today, Temple Reef. And I'm going to get into some pretty interesting stuff here. So they shut it, not last year, the year before. No, it was last year. Last year, 2024.
Yeah.
So opening season, just like this year, January 1st.
Every year.
Right? Super excited. We get pumped. We go out, we go fishing, we catch some goldens, we get winded out pretty much every day for the next 2 months, right? We have no opportunity to get out to the golden tile fishing grounds because of the wind. Very little, right?
I believe we went 3 times.
Yeah.
3
Counting
times.
the last.
And not from lack of effort. We wanted to get out there. It just wasn't happening. 6 foot seas, we're not going golden tile fishing, right? So they shut us down February 28th, right? Yeah. Super sad. So 1 month, 2 months we had to fish for golden tile. So I went down this rabbit hole where I'm like, why did that happen? And this was recent. I probably should have looked it up whenever they shut it down, but I started looking into it and I'm like, why did we not have this in 2022? Why in 2023 we got to fish till I think July in 2023 before they shut it down? And then I started really digging into it whenever I found out that the catch limit for recreational fishermen was 2,635 fish. That's it. So for the South Atlantic, we could only catch that amount of fish, and then they shut us down, right? What is their record keeping for this? It's kind of vague when you start digging into it, but this information is coming from NOAA. which is really the authority on this fishery in particular. So they shut it down, right? After we caught that quota. So I started looking into it a little bit more. So I'm like, okay, what is the commercial quota, right? Let's put it this way. The recreational quota is a rounding error in comparison. Okay, so the commercial quota is 97%. The recreational guys get 3%. I was like, how is that even close to fair? Everything that I've found online as you're like reading into this, it gets into, well, these commercial guys, they got to pay a crew, right? Which I understand. It's true. They do. They have to pay a crew. They got a lot of expenses, fuel expenses. They pay less than 1% taxes, which goes back to the fishery supposedly. And they have overhead that goes into it and the economic impact of restaurants selling this fish, right? But nowhere in the dialogue of that did I see, what about the economic impact of shutting down recreational fishing? And when I say that, what I'm talking about is tourism, right? Guys are coming down here to hire charter boats, to go fishing, to target species, right? Some guys are coming for the golden tilefish. So you're cutting out the charter boats, you're cutting out the tourism, the hotels, the mom and pop tackle shops all up and down our coast they now have invested in heavy Johnny Jigs, 500 grams plus, to go out and catch golden tilefish. And guess what they're going to do? They're going to sit on the shelves and collect dust. What about the economic impact of that? So as I think about this more and more, I'm like, okay, don't get me wrong. I'm all about conservation. Shut them down. But let's reach that quota and shut it down. I want the fishery to be healthy. I'm thinking about my kids. I'm thinking about my grandkids, my great-grandkids. I want them to be able to enjoy this amazing fishery that I've enjoyed the same exact way that I enjoyed it. But let's make it fair, right? We all need to eat. We're in the fishing tackle business and we suffer from these recreational closures. How can anybody look me in the eye with a straight face and honestly tell me that 97% to 3% is fair? And if you break down these numbers, so basically they break down the commercial fishing long line as well as hook and line and sinker, right? And if you add those two up, it's 433,000 pounds of gutted is what they get to catch. So at 3%, we're at 13,000 pounds. 433,000 pounds versus 13,000 pounds. How does that make sense? And then the other thing that really throws me off about this whole deal is that, so in 2023, it was basically the same quota. I'm talking about the numbers are very close. I think in 2024, they gave recreational guys like less than 1% more. Thank you. So kind of you. So generous, right? So in 2023, if the quota was met by July, you mean to tell me that in 2024, everybody and their grandma was getting that much better at catching golden tilefish that they shut us down in February? Or are their numbers skewed? Is there an issue with the numbers?
Well, remember, it came really fast last year. They didn't pre-curse this coming out. It was just golden tile is shut down next week. And we were like, wait, next week? I didn't even get to go out yet. What?
Yeah. I mean, do you guys think that's fair?
No. Was commercial also closed as of February 28th last year?
That I'm not 100% sure, but I believe so. I think they kind of go hand in hand. It's like who can catch the most fish the quickest, right?
Well, that was a major letdown, a big disappointment. It came as a large surprise when that closure was announced. And I also can't help but think if commercial was also closed on that date, what, and if that fish is being sold, what about just regulating it to have fresh fish all year long? Because now I might be in a restaurant buying a golden tile special in October, but that fish is 10 months old. It's been frozen for? You know, I don't know. We like to eat fresh fish, right?
Right.
You know, so why wouldn't we be able to spread out a quota and have it like a quarter, you know, by quarter or something, just to, you know,
A month here, a month there. You know,
Yeah,
every
just-
3 months we get 3 weeks of golden tile.
yeah, something different. But the numbers don't add up. Yeah, it's very misleading. And there's a lot of this going on. You know, golden tile is the topic of this conversation, and it includes, you know, regulations and fishery management, and you know, another instance where recreational anglers, you know, kind of get the shaft.
Well,
Yeah.
On the topic of the economic effect of the recreational, I was talking to another tackle shop owner who was saying the same thing, how it hurts their business, and he's afraid that they're going to regulate wahoo. He said if they regulate out wahoo out front, all these shops are going to be done. Because how many shops rely on the wahoo season, right? So all these regulations that come in, sometimes they don't understand the effect that will have on all these small businesses.
It's like let's put the mom and pop tackle shops out of business and keep the commercial guys going. But I mean, how many people? What's the ratio of people that are getting fed from one to the other?
Yeah,
you
are
know?
getting negatively affected.
It's diminishing too.
And I don't want to battle it out with the commercial, you know, guys. You know, I know they're gonna chime in here and say, you know, we got to eat too, but us eating is not even in the conversation, right? It's all about them eating. And you know, 97 to 3% is that fair? Is that fair? Is that in any way
Yeah.
fair to anybody? And then red snapper, right? What did we get last year? Do you remember?
One day.
One day. Commercial guys got a whole month where they can freaking pound 100 and something plus pounds per day on it, you know, and you know, just to kind of play the devil's advocate, they're not making a ton of money doing this, you know. Nobody's getting rich, you know, going out there busting their tails, their hands are cut up from the line, you know, hoisting these fish in, icing them down, bringing them to the market, long days out at sea away from their families, not coming home. Is it worth it?
It's the most deadly profession.
Yeah, I just
Putting
question
your life on the line.
Oh, it's brutal work, dude.
Mm-hmm.
It's brutal work. I mean, we go out for a day. Like I went out back-to-back 2 days golden tile fishing, and I was beat up. My elbows squeaking, my knee hurts. From putting that rod in my hip, I got a big bruise right here. You know, you would think I went to war, man. I mean, I'm no spring chicken anymore. I'm not an old man, but I'm no spring chicken anymore. So things start to ache. But you know, these guys are hardworking men that do deserve to feed their families, and so are we. We are hardworking men that deserve to feed our families as well. And there has to be a little bit more of a level of equality in the disbursement of these fish in order for us to stay in business and in order for us to continue on doing what we're doing.
Yeah. So the year is 2025, and I think after last year, we're all eager to see how the golden tile season shakes out this year, and we're pretty much ready for anything.
I just got a message. Golden tile's closed tomorrow.
Sorry. All right, let's take a quick 5-minute break.
Attention Northeast. Do you fish for tog, sea bass, stripers, or tuna? Have you tried getting them on a Johnny Jig yet? Jigging is easily the most exciting way to catch fish these days. Pick up yours today at johnnyjigs.com.
Tilefish season is officially open. John's already been out twice, the rest of us in the room once, but the year is 2025, and you know, all this regulation talk and buildup has led me to just, you know, what's going to happen this year, you know, and if this is a fish that you want to catch, if this is a fish that you haven't caught yet, now's the time to take advantage of the good days on the water and go out and get them, because they closed early last year and anything can happen, you know, this year. We hope it doesn't, but anything can happen. So go out and target these fish now.
I couldn't find anything on the regulations for this year, so I don't even know.
No, it was announced like mid-February last year. All of a sudden, if you like Fishing Wire magazine or, you know, different platforms that give notices for regulation changes, it just came through, and then all of a sudden the buzz, you know, for guys that target the fish started being a common conversation in the tackle shop. You know, it's a great avenue that we're kind of clued into, being at the tackle shop all the time. here in the latest, but it came as a boom surprise. And before we know it, it was closed.
It's a big deal for guys to catch their first golden on the jig.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you were saying guys come into our shop all the time and talk about wanting to or just have caught their very first golden tile on the jig, and they are fired up about it. I mean, you and I, our first goldens, I think I was on the jig, right? So I've done bait for many, many years prior to jigging, but on the jig was a big deal for you and I.
Yeah.
What about for you, Adam?
Hold on, I gotta stretch my back out. Give me a minute.
How many
guys.
golden tiles?
So many. The problem is, if Noah was monitoring my Instagram page, they'd probably shut down golden tiles right now. 'Cause I've caught in so many
In my mind.
in my head. I've lost them. I'm going to do a seminar, guys, on losing goldens. Just stay tuned for the next podcast. I'll teach you guys how to hook up, how to lose them, and be depressed for the rest of your lives.
Can I ask, how excited are you to land one of those fish?
Oh my gosh. It's all I really think about. Literally. Whenever they shut the season down, I don't know if you guys remember last year, I was working the shop. I got that Instagram post. I think it was from Noah, or someone posted something that was a Noah statement saying they were going to shut it down. I texted you guys immediately. And you're like, all right, we'll go fishing on Wednesday. And then you guys went Tuesday without me. And I didn't catch any. So I didn't catch any for the last year. The year before that.
He remembers that pretty vividly.
Yeah,
We
I remember
have
you
to
were wearing
get-
a green shirt. You had a black hat on. It was quite breezy outside.
We have to get Adam on a golden tile this year. Yeah. I mean, listen, you're a transplant. How long have you been in Florida?
Almost 4 years, yeah.
4 years now. But I mean, fishing heavy, it's probably the past couple of years down here.
Legit, I've tried for tile over 20 times.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Over
You
20.
poor soul.
I've gotten about a gazillion rosies.
Yeah. Well, the fish is that evasive too, where that's not, listen, it'd be nice if you've gotten one by now, but it's not totally uncommon for you to not. It's not every time you go out and target these fish that you get one.
I've seen one boated.
Yeah.
And
Really?
that was Will's the other day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the luck of the draw. We sat out there and grinded all day. Neither of us actually put a golden tile on the deck.
Yeah.
But then I went out 2 days later with Victor, and before 10 o'clock, I'd hooked into one and caught another.
Yep.
You know.
I got one on all 3 of our outings last year,
You went on a streak.
Did.
You went on a streak for sure.
and that streak is broken.
So just to kind of wrap this up a little bit, I really feel like that it could be equaled out a little bit better from the 97 to 3%, versus commercial versus recreational fishing. I think that we need more time out on the water. There's an economical impact that's involved in that, and there's a level of just being fair, of it. But if you guys feel the same way as I do about this topic, you can write a letter to the South Atlantic Fishery Management Council. That's kind of the avenue of making changes. There could be some better management, and I don't want to bust their chops. I just want things to be better, right? I think things could be a little bit better, and just like us as a company, them as a people managing the fishery can do better. We always want to be better. Hopefully they could do better than this as well. So next topic, 4-strand versus 8-strand. Right? It's an interesting topic. Like, we've dug into braid so many times, Chris and I, trying to just understand the nuances of it and what is better, what's the thinnest diameter. And it could be super confusing trying to wrap your head around everything, because there's PE rating, and then there's break strength rating, and then there's diameters that don't match up. But really, 4-strand versus 8-strand is another interesting topic. And Benny Ortiz, who I spoke about earlier, he's a very well-known slow pitch guy, very respected, very smart guy, that he talked about 4-strand being better than 8-strand through cutting through current. Let's take a listen to what Benny said, and I'd like to break this down a little bit. Benny, you there? Benny?
All right, so this is why you don't want to use 8-carrier lines. So what's going to happen is your current is going to hit your line from this direction. Once it hits this round line, 8-carrier line is a rounder line, it's going to create these eddies that are going to come off of the line, and they're going to be big. They're going to kind of flow around the back like that. So you're going to see that water influence affect it much more. The rougher line, like a 4-carrier or a fuse line, these eddies aren't going to have that round surface to kind of just ride around. So what's going to happen is they're going to be much smaller on there, and you're going to have much less water influence on that 4-carrier line as opposed to the 8-carrier line. So you're going to scope out faster with this one. You're going to stay more vertical with this one, and this one's going to tie your PR knot better.
So for you guys that are just listening to the podcast and not tuned in on the YouTube, which you could check us out on Johnny Jigs TV if you want to see what Benny is drawing on this piece of paper. So the first one, the 8-strand line, he has basically a perfect circle there, right? And he's got a line drawing around the left side of the line, and then he's got a line drawing around the right hand side of the line. And he's talking about these eddies, you know, so it cups the line as it gets towards the back side of the line as it's ripping through the current. And he's saying that that will cause more drag than the 4-strand. So the 4-strand line that he has drawn on the paper, it almost looks like a star bit. If you know, like your drill bits, it looks like a star bit, but a little bit more jaggeder. There's no symmetry to it, right? And he's basically saying that creates little pockets and smaller eddies on the line as it goes around the line into the little divots on the star bit, just to give you an idea of what it looks like. And he's saying that creates less resistance. And for me, when he drew it, it made a whole lot of sense. I'm like, yeah, Benny, that's right. Man, this guy, he's always got something cool to put out there. But then as I started digging into it more, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, Benny, you know, and I'm starting to second guess what he's saying.
So Chris, in the shop about 6 months ago, I don't know if it was a Daiwa rep or someone was talking to you about the pattern that the J4 makes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a cross-sectioning X pattern
Mm-hmm.
that rotated, giving it its rough characteristics. But that X pattern cut through the water better. And whenever I saw this Benny video, I was like, I've been telling people that for 6 months because Chris told me that and I just believed it. And then I started looking into it more. And when we said we were going to talk about this podcast, I really started researching it. And it kind of goes against everything that we're taught about hydrodynamics and the shape of the smoothness of the structure, not necessarily the shape, but the smoothness. The OMAE, which is the Offshore Mechanics and Arctic Engineering, did a study in 2005, hydrodynamic loads on twisted ropes, which essentially is a thicker braid, right? And their research indicated that twisted or braided ropes exhibit increased drag coefficients due to their surface roughness and structural design. The study on hydrodynamic loads found that the drag coefficient of a rope model was about 10% higher than that of a basic cylindrical model. All right, but now the one thing that it did not affect was in a wind turbine. So if we're talking about planes, airplane wings, things like that, it's completely different, which is something almost what you were talking about, John, which is, you know, whether the water can penetrate it or not, which would be a difference with that. But then also October 28, the American Meteorological Study, they posted reducing drag and oscillation in spheres for buoyancy in the oceanographic moorings, trying to keep oceanic moorings vertical, right? Mm-hmm. The more that there's a drag on their line, the moorings go underwater or they go to different positions that they don't want them. And they found that adopting streamlined shapes can significantly reduce the drag. While the study focused on spheres, the principle also applies to other objects, including ropes. Streamlined shapes minimize flow separation and turbulence, thereby reducing drag. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like it's like common sense, right? If it's rounded, the water goes around it faster. If it's got a broad side that it's hitting, it pushes up against it. But a lot of people had a lot to say in the comment thread about this, and it's a great topic. You know, I get it. It's okay to disagree with people and not be mad, right? We're having a conversation, which is cool. But Benny cited a article, and what I read in the article, he's talking about objects that are hyper hydrophobic, right? Not line. Line is hydrophobic, but whenever they're hyper hydrophobic, they create air pockets around an area, and then the water rolls better because of the air pockets. But we're not creating air pockets on the line. So one of the articles that he posted didn't quite make a whole lot of sense to me. I probably could I'm due to read it a couple more times over to really make sense of it. But
Hyperhydrophobic, meaning it's almost like water repellent.
yeah, repels water. You know that spray you put on your shoes or something, and you
Right.
watch the water beat off it, or like wax or something. You know, it blocks the water. The water does not penetrate the line or whatever the case may be. I mean, granted, the 4-strand is nice, right? Because, and we learned this in California going for bluefins, it's got some more abrasion to it, right?
Clearly, yeah, 100% undoubtedly extra abrasion resistance
Kelp
with
cutter.
4-strand braids. Yeah,
They call it the kelp cutter.
Kelp cutter, line cutter. So I think we kicked off our fishing there with 8-strand. It was like somebody was walking down the boat with a machete or a chainsaw.
slice.
Yeah, that was it. We had no, we couldn't come back.
Our very first San Diego video, daytime, I got sliced and I looked at the camera. It's in the video and I go, we got problems.
Chris that was one of the few times you'll see Chris pissed off, man. And he starts, and then the brain starts ticking. He's like, how can I outsmart these guys? You got to watch him, man. He's super clever sometimes. And then what's the diameter versus and break strength?
Well,
Chris?
I know the J braid stuff pretty well, and the 4-strand J braids are a few hundredths of a millimeter thinner than the same break strength of the 8-strand braids. That's J braid. I haven't done a lot of investigation with all the other lines. Many lines don't offer both 4 and 8 of the same, modeled braid, but with J braid, they are. So my choosing 15-pound 4-strand J braid to start golden tile season was primarily for I'm using a 15-pound braid. Give me as much abrasion resistance as I can get, even just fishing with John and Will and Adam. In the case of me getting twisted with anybody, I want the integrity of my line to be kept. The jury is definitely still out with me and it having less drag in the water, but I do want to maintain as vertical as possible. Adam, you're correct. I spoke with the X-Braid guys who Daiwa have recently brought into their organization, and Chad Boussier had the deep liner guys come to the United States and do a seminar at the Fisherman's Hut, and they actually broke down the construction of a braid and talked about this exact same thing that Benny talked about. I come from a big sailboating background, and I when sailboat races, I would Teflon the bottom of my sailboat just to be as smooth and hydrophobic as possible when I was in a race. And it's all about the smoothness and roundness of a hull. The only thing that makes me kind of stop in my tracks a little bit is now on Go Fast center console boats, they do put steps, in the hull. But for the most part, boating in water, a hull of a boat must be smooth, right? And round. And that's what 8 carrier braids and more, because there's 10 and 12 carrier braids, deliver. And one alternative benefit is all this thumbing we do of our spools to not manipulate the drag or just to tension the line when the jig is falling. It's a lot nicer putting your thumb on an 8-strand braid than it is a 4-strand braid.
Or level lining. When you're level lining and that 4-strand is cutting through your thumb.
Yeah. If you have a reel that level winds for you, go 4-strand, baby. But that smoothness is definitely nice on your fingers. Yeah. Also, the 8-strand braid is softer. So in the wind, when you leave that slack in the line and you're working the jig, it'll blow back on top of the rod, and there's a potential of getting a tip wrapped as well with it. I've fished a lot of 8-strand braid, and I do like 8-strand braid. I fished a lot of 4-strand. I like it as well, So whether it cuts through the water better than the other, I'm still on the fence about it. I'm not convinced. I need to see it to believe it. It's hard for me to really, really, really fully believe that.
Yeah, I'm up in the air. I don't know which.
Well, guys, that's about all the time we have for today. We actually have to get some work done around this place. But thanks for tuning in to Tapping Bottom with Johnny Jigs. Once again, a big thank you to our sponsor, Temple Reef, for making this show happen today. And you can find the Johnny Jigs podcast anywhere where you can stream podcasts, as well as watch it on Johnny Jigs TV on YouTube.
That's Tapping Bottom with Johnny Jigs.
Stay tuned next week for another episode
Of Adam losing golden tile.